Our first guest, the Vancouver Foundation, has identified social isolation as one of the great challenges of our city. Many newcomers to the city have told me that it can be indeed a lonely place. Our first presenter arrived in Vancouver from Mexico and has spent a lot of time thinking about human connections and civic engagement. He has created his own ways of fighting social isolation and has become a sought-after commentator on our city. Please welcome Jorge Amigo.
Hello, friends. More importantly, hello, strangers. Some of you know me or know of me for my community building initiatives, as Sam was mentioning. But for those of you who don't know me, here's a little synopsis. I was born and raised in Mexico City. I moved to Vancouver 8 years ago. And after a few years of living here, I felt that the city was a bit cold. It was a bit hard to meet people. You Vancouverites are a tough nut to crack. So in 2012, I launched a social initiative called Be My Amigo to facilitate conversations between strangers in my city and to make the city a little less lonely. And it seems like that was the big topic of the year. The Vancouver Foundation launched their famous survey where they proved that Vancouver is a lonely and disconnected place. A number of organizations jumped on board to launch initiatives. And even the mayor launched his Engaged City Task Force to deal with the effects of this isolation. So you can imagine I spent a lot of time thinking and talking with my friends about how to make Vancouver more sociable, how to bring communities together, because I really care to live in a friendlier city. But I've also realized that these conversations are more than just small talk. I learned that a more connected community increases our civic participation. In other words, the simple act of being open to talking to strangers can cause us to live in a better democracy. Some of you may have seen Charles Montgomery on this very stage exactly a year ago. I don't think that's a coincidence. Providing empirical evidence for this and explaining how the design of our cities and our public spaces can help build community and increase our civic participation. If you weren't here, you can just go and read his book. It's phenomenal. It's called The Happy City. So today, I want to add a different layer to my thinking about this topic, because I want to poke you with the idea that growing our social capital in our communities is not trivial. It will help us overcome some of our greatest challenges. We live in the most exciting time in the history of our civilization. No generation before us had ever faced the extraordinary possibility of our own extinction. No generation before us had been tasked with reinventing human society as we know it, or else face a catastrophic crumbling of our way of life. Now, I'm not going to tell you the stats on ecosystems destroyed or species lost the last month. I'm not going to talk about the state of our coral reefs or the collapse of our fisheries. You see, I'm not a pessimist. I see this mega crisis as our mega wake-up call. We are living the greatest opportunity that this intelligent species has ever faced. And of course, I'm talking about climate change. Of course, I'm talking about the fact that if we are to survive this century, everyone in this room will have to cooperate on this, whether you are aware of it or not. This is usually the point where climate deniers realize they really need to pee. For those of us who are aware of this, here's a conundrum. We know we are in the middle of a crisis, but we are certainly not acting like it. Our government is definitely not in crisis mode. Industry and most corporations definitely are not. And it seems like most of us are just sleepwalking into the future, uncomfortably ignoring alarming reports about how our window of opportunity to act is closing. So what's missing? What are we waiting for? Now, obviously, those are not rhetorical questions. I'm going to answer them in 3 minutes and then claim my Nobel Peace Prize. So perhaps some of us individually feel like we're too small to contribute to climate change. We wonder, who am I to propose policy solutions? Do my individual actions add up? My changes of habits, do they add up? In the same way, some of us may feel, some of us may stay idle because we don't feel empowered to act. We feel that a problem of this magnitude is the domain of experts, that the market will take care of it, that our leaders will make the right choices for us. Yeah, you were supposed to laugh at that. I had it in my script. And no wonder we feel that way. Climate change is a systems problem. It is about our systems of production and consumption, about our economic dogma of growth, about our ideology that glorifies individualism. Climate change is about rethinking the very foundations of our ethics and our philosophy as a species. In other words, we should look at climate change not as a problem for humanity to solve, but as a problem that solves humanity. Now, this all sounds very nice and well argued, so thanks, yeah, I wrote it myself. But I'm going to step out of my soapbox for a second. I'm not here to lecture you or to make you feel guilty about your inaction. I have to confess that I was panicking last night about this talk and, the night before and the entire week before. It was not really a panic, actually. It was more like a full-blown existential crisis. Because I felt I have no real advice to give you, because I'm not an expert. And then I realized, that's exactly why I need to be here. Because like you, I'm not an expert on climate change. Like you, I feel overwhelmed. Like you, I feel alone. Like you, I feel it's easier to just retreat and worry about myself. After all, I live a block away from a spectacular seawall where I can just go bike to any number of gelato shops or ramen and make any problem go away. But I'm talking to you because I feel that as a resident of Vancouver, it is my civic responsibility to use this stage to try to encourage you to act on climate change. But here's the trick. We won't act if we don't care about one another. I'm here as a non-expert to tell you that in order to save ourselves, to really find solutions, we're going to need each other. We won't change our habits. We're not going to demand policy solutions or changes if we don't care about the place where we live. And we won't care about the place where we live if we don't know the people around us, if we don't understand each other's stories and what motivates us. So in other words, to survive this century, we need this army of non-experts to talk to one another. That is exactly what community is about. That is what democracy is about. In her latest book, Naomi Klein explains the connection between capitalism and climate change and eloquently explains how mass action is the only thing that will save us. That the economic and political system is so well rigged against the planet that only well-organized movements can change our culture. That only love for one another will wake us up from our inaction. Think about what just happened at Burnaby Mountain a few months ago. Even if perhaps the oil company did not retreat and the government will not ban their activities forever, that company has lost its social license. And Burnaby Mountain will never be the same. In our collective imagination, Burnaby Mountain means something different now. It means a place where citizens got together to dialogue, to fight for a right to a clean and fair planet. Past social movements have had a tremendous influence on how the dominant culture has evolved. Just think about the civil rights movement of the last century or the feminist movement. They have completely changed the narrative of who we are as a society. And that's where talking to strangers, we're making an effort to know your community becomes important. And I have some really good news for you. We have numerous initiatives in Vancouver that are helping us build a stronger community. For instance, we have Lead Now, a small organization that's having an enormous impact in changing the conversation about politics in this country and getting young people excited about political issues and grassroots organizing. We have Rain City Chronicles, a storytelling night that puts people like you and me on a stage to share our personal stories so that we care about each other. Or just look at City Studio, an innovation hub where university students and city hall staff collaborate on projects that reinvent our public spaces to build a greener city. So what can you do? Well, to be sincere, I'm trying to figure that out too. But we can start by taking the word community out of the abstract realm and landing it on concrete actions. It can mean awkwardly walking up and down Commercial Drive on car-free day or chatting up your local beekeeper at the winter farmers market. The stepping stones we take to nurture our civic involvement are our best strategy for survival as a species. So I can't obviously predict what the world is going to look like at the end of the century. But I can promise you one thing. If we ever arrive at this transformation, it will look a lot better than what we have. It will have to be a place of sharing, a place of less greed and much less individualism, a place where our priorities are less banal and more meaningful, where our decisions are never about our personal gain and always about collective happiness. It will be a place where we know and care about our neighbors. And yes, of course, it will be a place where we take less selfies. I don't know about you, but that's the world where I would like to live in. Thank you. You see, the problem with telling a non-expert to come onto a stage is now I want to show you all my talents. So there happens to be a song that that I guess really encapsulates what I just said. And music is a way of getting people together to feel fuzzy feelings. So you know this, please sing along. When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see, no, I won't be afraid. No, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. Darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. If the sky that we look upon should crumble and fall, or the mountain should crumble to the sea, boom, 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 I won't cry, I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. Darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. Whenever you're in trouble, you can stand by me. Oh, stand